researching this, I found a group of Italian doctors that they were combating on the front line in Bergamo. They really kind of criticized that entire country has been shut down. Initially, that might have been important, but so they kind of divided the population in 4 levels. So we have asymptomatic population, people, they have no symptoms at all. They're just feeling okay, no symptoms, even if they might have the coronavirus or any other virus. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, we're talking somewhere at a level of 80 to 87% of whole population. It's possibly asymptomatic. We don't have the exact figures, but that's the range. Then we have people with symptomatic, they're symptomatics, but very mild symptoms. So basically they feel unwell, they have a sore throat, maybe mild temperature or something, but they go to work, they carry on, and so on. Then we have symptomatics with quite serious symptoms, which again are falling into this range of 13% of the whole population. Yeah, 13%. So, and then of course we have people with multiple complex illnesses. We're talking diabetes, cancer, heart disease, all kinds of stuff. And these people are at serious risk. So the proposal is that actually, instead of shutting the entire world down or the entire country down, we should identify the people which are in greater risk. And these people who are at greater risk should be responsible to say, okay, I'm at greater risk, I suffer from this. And for the future events, to have kind of a prepared strategy to perhaps quarantine these people, genuinely to protect their lives. So, as well as offer other people with possible serious symptoms that they might have some primary illness, they might have extremely stressful job or had surgery or any kind of illness or difficulty, so the immune system might be compromised and so on. Rather than tagging entire population there and monitoring entire population, so you already identify people who are at risk. But the other thing that they really talked about really strongly and quite desperately, that they were working and saving thousands of lives. And they talked about a state of socio-economical state of medicine in Italy. That's actually the area which is the most affected with the coronavirus. It's one of the most advanced areas in the world, and certainly in Europe. Yeah, we have really extraordinary medical services and so on. But the problem was that this extraordinary medical service became very centralized since the privatization of the sector. Yeah, so the government privatizing the medicine here and everywhere else, obviously, moved from the local doctors, yeah, and centralized the power in the hospitals, the funds, the resources in the hospitals. So when, instead of returning to the territorial kind of a distribution of resources, supporting the local GPs, local clinics, and so on. So instead of having one doctor dealing with 10 to 100,000 people, you have a lot less, a lot lower ratio doctor to a patient. And I think really that's kind of common sense, and it's quite brilliant. So decentralizing and deprivatizing this whole system that really did not bring any good, unfortunately. And then so they built extra hospitals in a rush, and they threw like hundreds of millions of euros, and this hospital stayed empty, and so on and so on. So I think inadequacy and incompetence of some of these leading kind of figures and authorities, they have to be taken to consideration, and they have to take responsibility for that. And some of these people need to say, I made a mistake, we made a mistake. I thought this was, some form of apology would be useful. I mean, there were people they died. They were rushed to hospitals. They died. They could not even be buried by their loved ones. I think living through the war in Serbia, and it is catastrophic, really. To me, it's so sad and so unbelievably unforgivable, and we will forget all of that. You see, in a few months' time, we will forget that. But some people really were just abandoned in some plastic bag and thrown in a ditch there because other people were not competent enough to actually structure, for whatever reasons, privatization or personal gain or inadequacy. So hence my invite to you, really, you need to take care of your own health, though. Take power into your own hands, and we have a lot of power here. Because if you're going to wait for some of these guys to make choices for you, we might end up in some of these body bags without even ever say, but I don't want to sound morbid here. I apologize if I don't apologize. So shouldn't apologize. That's what I felt. And it moved me deeply, some of these things. So, so trying to be constructive, not to repeat mistakes. Intelligent people there's old saying that everyone makes a mistake in life, most people make same mistake twice. Stupid people make the same mistake more than twice, and it is really a lot more. And what we're seeing in some of these governments and authority figures, they keep rolling the mistakes over and over, and no one is really learning from them. So anyhow, let's move on to the prevention here of or other level of how can we prevent, how can we deal with the infection when it comes along. So in my research, again, what I managed to discover and to elaborate as well and to use is that there are 4 stages in this COVID-19 infection. So just to describe, the name of the webinar is SARS-CoV-2, which is the name of the viral virus, while the COVID-19 is an infection. So either way, whichever we use, it's we know the meaning, we know what we are trying to describe here. So the main thing is prevention, really. And again, going back to these figures, from 83 to 87% of people are asymptomatic, and probably most of them have some level of good prevention, some decent lifestyle choices, and so on. The second phase is, even when you get infected, and some of us, or most of us even might get infected, that we can actually have resources and strategies how we can deal with it. And the third stage is escalating inflammation. And that often really takes people to very, very difficult state where they hyperventilate, they can't breathe, there is a vasoconstriction in the lungs, blood pressure goes down, oxygen level drop in the blood, and really entire system in a way is kind of shutting down. And often that it's called cytokine storm. So, and that can progress to sepsis. Most of the deaths have been due to sepsis, so collapse of the entire system. And we have solutions for that as well. There are amazing human beings. They develop also protocols that they take you from sepsis. There's Dr. Marek, and I have a slide at the end just to share this as well. So even when you reach very dangerous level of any infection, there is a way out of this. Again, using, for example, vitamin C, one of the ingredients is. So, and then is the recovery process present here. Also, I like to bring 2 theories. One theory with COVID specifically is that melatonin, the COVID was mainly the people who are affected strongly by COVID. It was due to melatonin deficiency. So melatonin deficiency, and on the graph you can see is young people really have a high level of melatonin, and then as we age, that really declines, and so on. And so most older people mainly have a very low level of melatonin. However, that's theory didn't stand fully because a lot of kids actually got infected. And as a matter of fact, some of the protocols used for children actually used melatonin with the great effect, with the great results. Actually, melatonin seemed to be, even in children, the groundbreaking kind of the ingredient that made a difference. Okay. However, there is another aspect of this. So, aspect that initially we thought that it's pneumonia or some other respiratory disease. However, then there were different experiences from different doctors on the front line, and they were really saying this is something very different: altitude sickness, microvascular disease, and so on. And so the other theory is actually that CoQ10, ubiquinol, is another big player here. And there is a graph, very useful graph, showing how the presence of CoQ10, as a matter of fact, in the people with COVID and with the viruses, how it drops for more than 20%, the presence in particular organs, particularly lung is kind of a very high up there. But lung, liver, kidneys, and heart are the main organs that accumulate the CoQ10, or the CoQ10 is very active in those organs. And that's very interesting because CoQ10 really it's a main kind of component in electron transport and feeding of the cells, mitochondria of the cells. So actually producing energy within the cell. So the greater energy there is in the cell, greater oxygenation there is in the cell, the greater health of the cell will be, then in return the organ will function much greater, and the whole body in return. Okay, so just these two strategies, and those two supplements are really strong antioxidants that I definitely would suggest using. Okay, so the main strategies for prevention here are vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, particularly zinc with bioflavonoids and quercetin in particular, which is also anti-inflammatory, selenium, and probiotics. So these are kind of the basic structure of the minerals and vitamins that have a really great effect on immune system, and some of them are actually antiviral. So I'm just going to briefly mention a couple of things here. That's interesting thing, that hydroxychloroquine medicine that is anti-malaria, and that Trump and everyone else talked about that. And as a matter of fact, it's a zinc ionophore, meaning that facilitates the absorption of the zinc within a cell. And there is a guy in New York as well, the Dr. Zelenko, who used actually combination of this hydroxychloroquine with some antibiotics, one of those mycins, zinc, and zinc as well, with had 700 patients and 100% success rate, and they're all in a critical condition. So, and anyhow, so just, and you know, if some of these medicine need to be promoted, why don't we promote zinc as well? You know, why would you promote the medicine that actually has a secondary function? The primary function is absorption of zinc within the cell, because zinc has over 300 functions in the human body, and one of them, it's one of the strongest, is antiviral. Yeah, particularly if it's taken sublingually. So there is with the mucosa, I'll come to that in a minute. You do the prevention, the first stage of preventative strategies to line your mucous membrane of your nose and your mouth with particular antiviral substances. Anyhow, so that's just a little background here. And the vitamin D, and I'll come to the ACE2 receptor later on, but it's very, very important. And then also that kind of, again, brings level of frustration with some of these lockdown measures, particularly here in Italy, where you weren't allowed to go outside on the sea. We live next to the sea. You penalized €400, and no one is earning any money. €400 for just going somewhere, and with the mask, you need to have a mask and all of this stuff. But even in Spanish flu in 1918, and it wasn't actually Spanish, actually it was American, came from the US, actually. They traced it back to the US military installation. Then the US soldiers took it to Europe on their ship, actually. So that's the kind of origin of Spanish flu. If someone is interested, should really look into the origin of that. It's some great programs done on this. And actually, most soldiers or people who survived this were taken out of the tents outside under the sun and the oxygen to get some vitamin D and oxygen. But here we have been forced in reverse. So let me have the mask so I can recycle my own germs, viruses and bacteria, actually not really breathing enough oxygen. So I might be depleted already with oxygen in my blood. So let's have some more depletion. That's really a fantastic strategy. I really love that. And then don't go on the sun. You know, you might get some vitamin D, and your immune system might actually flourish as well. So to me, that's really, and no matter how much we send complaints and so on, it's still, but they're cracking though. They were intending to keep us for many months locked down, but it's not really real, this whole situation. So I really would suggest you guys taking vitamin D and vitamin A, and the dosages I'll talk between 2,000 to 10,000 IUs, international units of A and D. And some people were criticizing that too much vitamin A might deplete vitamin D and vice versa. So if you're not sure, the best thing is to do a blood test and to check your vitamin D levels. But it's safe to say from 2 to 10,000 IUs on both, you would actually benefit greatly. Also, vitamin both I and D are found in the fish oils, so you just take large amounts. However, it takes about a couple of months for your body to really receive and develop the levels of optimal levels of vitamin A and D if you take that route. So vitamin C, anywhere from 1 to 10 grams a day. That really depends on the people. I mean, we have people with pneumonia taking 20 grams orally, not talking intravenous, orally, with no diarrhea. And just for you, some of you who don't know, your threshold limit for vitamin C, when your stool goes soft or you have diarrhea, meaning your body is kind of shutting down on vitamin C, doesn't need any more vitamin C. Yeah, so you just reduce the dosage. But most people are fine between 2 to 6 grams a day. Selenium as well, and selenium story comes from Wuhan, where there is depletion of selenium in the soil. Just take Brazil nuts. 3 or 4 Brazil nuts have phenomenally high level of and highly bioavailable selenium in it. And probiotics, really, probiotics, really important, because often as you would take some of these supplements and there would be detoxification process happening, and some of the bacteria, viruses might be being dumped into the system. Where do they go? They go into the gut. So having the probiotics there to neutralize the toxicity of the bacteria and the viruses in the gut, it is fundamental. Also, we know as a second brain, that good strong gut, it's the main kind of a support for your immune system as well. Don't forget antioxidant support, NAC and acetylcysteine, great antioxidant, supports the liver and detoxification processes, melatonin, CoQ10 or ubiquinol, and glutathione. And I'm not saying you should take all of that, but some you can choose depending on your situation, and you can actually use some of the supplements. as a preventative stage. So then I'll share some strategies against infection. Just check the time. I'm running over time. So just for some of you to know, probably will be 15 minutes over time. So phase 1 usually lasts between 1 and 4 days. And phase 1 is when you absorb any virus. So COVID, airborne virus in particular, we're not talking about sexually transmitted viruses or blood transmitted viruses. We're talking, although they also have an incubation period up to 14 to 21 days. But phase 1 in airborne viruses like COVID or SARS-CoV-2 lasts between 1 and 4 days, meaning that they will attach to our mucus membrane in our nose and in our mouth. They will incubate there, and then depends on our state of susceptibility, then they will penetrate and enter into the cells and go down into the lungs and so on. So there are some phenomenal strategies here. That's one of my top ones is a nebulizer, which I found recently, and that was so clever. Using nebulizer, it disperses these microparticles into the mouth, into the lungs, into the nose, and really purifies. There are other substances I won't mention now here, but iodine is just 5% iodine, and you only have 1 or 2 drops in the saline solution, and that's highly beneficial. Intranasal spray does the similar job. It just doesn't go as deep into your lungs as nebulizer. Throat spray like propolis, manuka oil, and oregano are phenomenal. You know, they're all antiviral, antiseptic, antibacterial, anti-everything, and they're natural substances, yeah, no side effects. So you're just having a spray every hour, every 2 hours, a few sprays in your throat, and you're disinfecting your mouth. Also, the other aspect is, as Zelenko used and many others used, the zinc lozenges, really beneficial, so they line out the mucous membrane of the mouth. Manuka honey, 20 plus UMF. So Manuka factor, it's 30 times more potent than tea tree, for example, as an antibacterial. So yeah, use that. You can have Manuka honey and lemon, or just have a teaspoon of Manuka honey, you know, frequently. So that's also very simple, very useful strategy. Okay, then so we are moving now into the phase 2 of the infection, which lasts between 1 to 14 days. So meaning that already viruses penetrated our cells, went into the infected system and activated the primary response first, which is the fever, higher temperature coming up, interferon production, macrophages, natural killer cells, etc. And if that does not resolve the situation, then we might have a secondary response. And then the antibodies might be formed. There are lymphocytes, Th1 cells, which are kind of more localized cells, and there is a Th2 cells, which is more systemic, the global kind of a response. And the immune memory is triggered as well, so the immune system is desperately trying to find out have I been affected by this before or not. So strategies for this, the herbs and mushrooms, particularly mushrooms, are great compounds that can be used. Just noticing that the sun is behind you, might not be able to, you don't need to see me, you need to see the screen. So astragalus, andrographis, licorice, cat's claw, wormwood, elderberry, Chinese cold cup or bicalensis, berberine, reishi, shiitake, and maitake. So some of these products are being used around the world. So in China, some of these products are used, particularly astragalus, andrographis, licorice as well. Cat's claw is a great Unicaria, South American herb. Wormwood, for example, and particularly the Chinese wormwood, which is Artemisia annua, because we got Artemisia centium. Van Gogh was hallucinating on it, and actually has a great antiparasitic and antiviral properties, but particularly the wormwood, Chinese wormwood, Artemisia annua. It's a great remedy. As a matter of fact, some of the African remedies have been ignored as well. An African continent has got phenomenal richness, but not to go again and lose time on the colonial madness that's has been expressed across the globe. So some of the medical wisdom has been forgotten. However, recently the president of Madagascar really comes out and he says, we have our own cure. We don't need the WHO's, WHO's, or anyone else's really guidelines, you know, and actually one of their compounds is Artemisia annua. And I know this because I was involved in the research on malaria 20 years ago, which feverfew and wormwood were used as in Chinese Artemisia annua has been used with extraordinary results as well. So, you know, some of these things do work. Chinese cold cup, great anti-inflammatory, used for any inflammatory condition as well. So, you know, very long history. Berberine, found in golden seal, Oregon grapeseed as well, reishi, shiitake. There are many other products as well, not just limit to this, but these somehow I've used with the great success, elderberry as well, with the great success, and I've seen some other practitioners are using it. Okay, so here's the important point where you need a practitioner. Actually, you need someone who, you know, knows something a little bit more than super to the surface, and often you won't find this on the internet. So now the strategy that we remembered, we went through prevention, we went through infection. Now we're coming to the infection with escalating inflammation, coming to the cytokine storm. Yeah, cytokine storm is an interesting phenomenon as well, where the body really goes into the fifth gear, trying to really destroy any virus, any pathogen, and then often destroying, you know, causing the autoimmune response, destroying their own cells and the host. So let me say, okay, let me do this first, and I'll say something about that as well. So stopping, then what you should do, really, you should stop the herbs and mushrooms at this stage. If there is a really high inflammation, and if you're really going into this high cytokine storm, very high temperature, and, you know, system, you need to go into anti-inflammatories here. Yeah, and some of the anti-inflammatories can be life-saving as well. You definitely need to stop herbs and mushrooms, because what herbs and mushrooms do, they stimulate your immune system. So in this case now, you don't need any more stimulation of the immune system. Actually, you just carry on with the baseline prevention. So supporting your system, your whole body and immune system with the vitamins and minerals. I would definitely double the dosage of all of those vitamins and minerals also, and antioxidant support. And I would add curcumin and bromelain as well. And curcumin probably between 500 and 1,000 milligrams daily, at least, and bromelain anywhere from 500, which is a minimal dose, to 3,000 GDUs. So, yeah, so this is really important. My observation, second point here, my observation of such a strong immune response often is related to your body being suffering the complex pathologies and not being strong enough. And if you, for example, if you haven't run for a while, and if you run, I don't know, 100 meters, or you run 30, 50 meters up the hill, what will happen? Your lungs will reach the level of nearly exploding. You will really lose your breath. You'll be unable to move in a way. So, and it will take you a while to recover from this, and so on. But any athlete, someone who is already, fit and in training, it wouldn't feel a thing. Yeah, it will feel a little bit out of breath, and then within few breaths you will recover from this. In the same way, I think cytokine storm manifests in the human body. So if you're not using your immune system, or your immune system is overwhelmed, really, if you're doing the marathons, ultra marathons every day, clearly then, you probably will collapse very soon. So I think finding the way of balancing your strategies for boosting immune system are fundamental to prevent any high inflammation or cytokine storm. Because inflammation is good, escalated inflammation it's not. In cases of hypoxia or low oxygen in the blood, and there are little the instruments that you can put on your finger and measure that as well. It's very useful to have it. You can add B vitamins as well, particularly B1 thiamine and B3 niacin. So then you will have kind of a more peripheral circulation being circulated. You will arginine and citrulline malate are very useful. Nitric oxide, rosemary and rhodiola are found to be very beneficial in low oxygen in hypoxia cases, and breathe as well. As a matter of fact, one of the strategies I might share now, because I'm already run out of time, but I've got another 10 minutes at least. So what we do have here, that breath, using your breath, breathing through your nose, inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your nose, as a matter of fact, produces nitric oxide in itself, produces in your sinuses and in your lung tissue as well. At the same time, it stimulates the particular nuclei in the brainstem related to parasympathetic nuclei or parasympathetic nervous system. Yeah. So what happens? Your system is relaxing. So any vasoconstriction in your lungs will become vasodilation. Your capacity to absorb more oxygen and to have less hyperventilation will actually manifest very naturally. So inhaling for at least 5-6 seconds, exhaling for 5 or 6 seconds through the nose, it's highly beneficial as well. You can increase that, and that's one of the strategies I really strongly suggest to do. So that's your natural nitric oxide, which is also produced by exercise and so on. Another important point here. So apart from having really, avoiding all the crap food, refined sugars, dairy, heavy foods and so on, what we found that a lot of people with COVID were deficient in potassium. So focused on potassium-rich food like avocado, sweet potatoes, plantain, bananas, coconut, dandelions, chicory, and so on. Also, like green foods and high in fiber, ginger, turmeric, garlic, onion, mushrooms. Also, other additional vegetables I found, and fruits like berries, grapefruit, nuts and seeds, Brazil nuts, walnuts, pumpkin seeds in particular, kiwi, apricots, watercress, rockets, baby kale, which the exclamation mark, please steam the kale. Don't eat it raw, okay? Too much cellulose, it doesn't absorb well. Greens, artichokes, particularly useful. We'll come to that in a minute. Beetroot, cumin, cloves, buckthorn oil, and so on. So basically natural foods, seasonal foods as much as possible, and definitely as organic as possible. To some of my clients who actually suffered from COVID, and when they're under particular attack, I suggest liquid foods, so soups, broths, bone broths, so you really minimize the digestive transition and combination or effort that the immune system needs to apply in order to digest the foods. So basically, the minimal efforts in digestion, maximum effort in immune fighting. Intermittent fasting, very beneficial, or fasting in general, but 12 hours, so you have liquid food or broth in the evening about 6 o'clock. You eat somewhere about midday following day, incredibly beneficial for you. Really, that's a game changer. Quite simple strategy, and it's free, cheap. Okay, herbal teas that I use, they have also the ACE2 inhibitors and other antiviral, antiseptic, and so on, like thyme, sage, peppermint, oregano, elderflower, yarrow, green tea. So these are the main strategies that I kind of prepared for you, that I use. This part here, it's a little bit more, let's say, scientific, which describes ACE2 enzyme, which is an enzyme and protein that facilitates the entry of the SARS-CoV-2 into the cell, because it's a receptor, and you can see that the green receptor there, that actually the spike of the virus attaches to it and then slides through the cell membrane into the cell and pollutes and starts mutating in the cell. And it's very useful. Reason why I mentioned this as well, that we have vitamin D, for example, it blocks the ACE2 attachment. So actually has a number of benefits, but specifically that's useful. Vitamin C also does that. Also, what they're finding now, and that was really difficult to find, is that ACE2, TMPRSS2, and furin are particular enzymes and proteins which seem to facilitate the transition of SARS-CoV-2 virus into the cells. So that protective layer that we have initially might succumb to, or might actually allow the proliferation of viruses in. And basically it's found in the nasal passages, mainly lungs, ileum, which is a part of the small intestine, heart, in the eye, and the liver. Okay, and why is this useful as well? That because this part of CoQ10 hypothesis, and which is related to microvascular disease, which is related to endothelial dysfunction. So the membranes, basically the membranes, our inner membranes of our the mouth, throat, nasal membranes of our pleura, lungs, and intestines, and so on, seem to be, when they are dysfunctioning or they're not fully functioning, that there is an excessive level of ACE2 proteins there, and the furin protein, which apparently is very interesting. These are some of the hypotheses as well. And what has been observed, that in the healthy subjects, ACE2 and furin protein are much less present. So hence the much less possibility for any virus to attach to and proliferate into the cell. So again, I'm coming back to the whole immunity. Look after yourself, build your immune system, so any of these possible proteins and enzymes, they might be less present in a system. So, and there are different pathways. We don't have time for that. Useful thing I might add, it's a furin inhibitor. And heparin has been one of the medicines here in Italy they use with the great success, actually. So that people had collapsing lungs and very low oxygen levels, and what they use, the heparin, is a medicine to really take them out of the critical stage. However, what we do have, we got a number of natural furin inhibitors, like skullcap, like Chinese skullcap, or bicalensis, or scutellaria, as we mentioned, thyme, sage, artichokes, for example, and andrographis, and yeah. So, okay, so yeah, gosh, I'm getting really just starting warmed up now. I hope, I trust that you are having a good time as I am. I'm actually starting to enjoy this very much. it's a huge subject, so forgive me for not sticking to an exact minute, but feel free to leave. But yeah, there is more interesting things here to come, another 10 minutes. So another aspect that I really need to mention here is the aspect of neurological and stress-related effects on our immune system. So if some people just say, okay, I'm just going to take all these supplements, I'm going to, wait for the vaccination, I'm going to wait for some silver bullets, you need to reevaluate what I'm going to say now, because it's not that vaccine or particular medicine or any of these supplements above will protect you if your nervous system and your environment, coming back to that triad, epidemiological triad, if your environment is toxic, yeah, if you're neurologically suffering the chronic stress or trauma or domestic abuse or inequality or some form of social violence that is present in society, and in some countries escalated to unbelievable levels, really. And it's really, no one hears anything about this. The main focus is vaccine and virus, but really the destruction of social milieu that we're actually experiencing now really needs to be taken into account. And what I'm noticing here, this is the graph that we use in trauma work, where if you can see where the word social engagement is in the green at the bottom, and that's gentle wave, blue wave that's there, we call this baseline. Yeah, so this baseline means that I'm in my baseline when I'm relaxed. I'm sitting on the couch, I'm with my family or my loved one. I'm really happy and relaxed. Nothing upsets me right now. So that's your baseline. If I feel irritated, annoyed, I don't know, my kids or my partner or someone or some of these people in authority on TV, they can trigger you a little bit or a little bit more, so you do become activated with this. Or you might actually be very zen and really dissociate from this and really have, I'm very spiritual, we all want, nothing really touches me. It's kind of a dissociation there, but well done if you manage that works for you, good for you. So when you're reaching the level of activation, your biological profile is changing. So if I'm being totally relaxed, I have very different biochemical profile. If I'm feeling agitated, if I'm feeling angry, my whole biochemical profile is very different. If I'm feeling fearful and depressed, my whole biochemical profile is very different. Even though when I reach my threshold, let's say when I'm really can become, I don't know, going to the rage, or my body will collapse, or am I going to the fear response and I might freeze? So I can overstimulate my immune system, my nervous system, my nervous system, and I will hit this other threshold level and be taken to a dissociative state, freeze, overwhelm, or collapse. So this is really important, because what I noticed that actually this is happening, the window of tolerance, you can see this is a small window in front of you, that the word is social engagement, fight and freeze is a window. And for some people, there might be a very large window. So I might be activated and I might still be composed. And this bell curve might rise up and not really go too high, it might just go mildly, and I can really balance, my nervous system is okay. And some of us might just go very high and then crash down and so on, going to the overwhelming. So this is really useful to have a picture of this window of tolerance in today's world, because you will be touched by different things in your life. You will be affected by this. Your responses are normal. No matter what your response, you might be upset, you might be angry, you might behave crazy, you might really express all kind of deep emotions, from depression, sadness, fear, or whatever. It is normal. and I do observe this, it's quite parallel with a inflammatory baseline. So, and I'm just gonna, I don't have the graph, but just to tell you that if you superimpose the same graph, which will describe exactly the same inflammatory response of the body. So where the social engagement were this, and the blue wave there at the bottom. So my inflammatory response is very calm, very relaxed. Yeah, I have a very mild or no inflammation whatsoever. And then when the pathogen or some invader enters my system, or environmentally I'm affected by something, my whole system will respond. My immune response or inflammation response will go up exactly following this bell curve. But what I noticed that in today's world, this baseline is gone up. Yeah. So this social engagement, it's very rare that we really feel totally relaxed. There is a level of worry, concern, anxiety, irritation. You don't really know. You're not quite sure. You can't put your finger on it, but you are feeling it. Yeah. So, and that's really already different baseline. In the same way, the inflammation in your body also is present on a higher level. So basically, your immune system is working overtime because of this invisible or not obvious stress and solution. So when you hit particular invader, or invader hits you, etc., your inflammation might go much higher than it needs to be because it's already been affected and activated, and your nervous system might be triggered much faster than normally is. And just make no mistakes. If your nervous system is activated, your immune system is functioning less. Yeah. So, you know, if your nervous system is relaxed, your immune system is going strong. Yeah. So, balancing that and level of stress and emotional health is fundamental in a healthy immune system. So, why is it not? I don't know what happened here. Okay, also levels of isolation, confusion, insecurity dramatically affects our nervous system and our immune system. Yeah. So if I feel isolated, I feel confused, I feel insecure, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, I feel confused. I see different countries behaving differently. I see our leaders say one thing today, another thing tomorrow. You know, it is really disturbing. People want to go back to work at any cost, because not because they're so crazy about their work, but because that's the sense of safety. When I'm working, I feel safe. It's kind of an early pattern, and so on. So I also observe this level of disorganized attachment, which in psychoneurobiology, we talk about this, that disorganized attachment is where the parent didn't have boundaries, and he was sending the mixed messages. There could have been abuse, some violence, or neglect. Any of that could have played the role, because your authority figure, or someone who you trust to survival, will giving you mixed messages. Yeah. And what we are finding ourselves right now exactly in the same state. And my observation is that we are in some form of disorganized attachment here, and that really unconsciously provokes particular deeper emotions, which in return will affect your immune system. So please be aware of that. And if you think there is no correlation between your immune health and your emotions, think again. A while ago, the university in Finland came up with amazing research, and they showed exactly how some of the emotions will present and where in the body as well. And also there is a deeper body of knowledge in what kind of hormones and biochemical cascades are involved in some of these things. So yeah, be aware of that. So strategies for healthy nervous system: social engagement, self-care, care for others, spend time in nature, sun, air, be with elements, with animals, breathing exercises that I mentioned early on. Exercise intelligently. It's important for you to move, but you don't need to prepare for Olympics unless you're Olympic athlete. Just be wise. Over exercising is not a good thing either. And therapies, body therapies, mind therapies, talking to someone who can hear you, who can see you, who can just be there for you. It's fundamental. It's so beneficial. Someone to put their hands on your body. It's so profoundly healing as well. So really finding some of these strategies will keep you along. So COVID-19 will go. They might send us COVID-20, 21, who knows? But we can beat all of this stuff up with your huge immune system. It's been, working for you for thousands, for millions of years. Additional information just for some of my colleagues, homeopaths. They've done an amazing study here in Italy, which I didn't know. I learned this from my American colleagues. Yeah, so it goes to show you what transparency is here. So there were 50 COVID patients, and there were 24 homeopaths. Also, there are medics as well, and they had 100% success rate. And I will send you this later to go through it. But they had 100% success rate, and they use different remedies for different people and so on. So it's a range of remedies. So someone says, oh, homeopathy doesn't work, or this doesn't work. I mean, it's just, please, there is a lot of evidence in some of these things. So, and just to close with this legendary guy, Dr. Paul Marik, his sepsis IV protocol, it's saving lives, and usually the medical establishment doesn't have an answer when the sepsis, a client goes into sepsis. It's total collapse, organ failure, and so on. So what he does, he uses vitamin C intravenously, 1.5 grams every 6 hours, thiamine or B1 vitamin, 200 milligrams every 12 hours, and hydrocortisone, 50 milligrams every 6 hours. So a combination of these three reduces the mortality rate down to 8.5%, which is unheard of. So I think the whole world should know about this, I believe, and it might work a little bit better or a little bit less for some people, but I think in today's world we really should I'm trying to open my, please, can you open? How do I open this thing? So I'm going to stop share. Good. Okay. So I managed to summarize everything. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. In the chat, we have a chat. So anyone chat share. Okay, so the question here is okay. Okay, from Sheila, which vitamin A, how much zinc is this affect good cholesterol and also copper in the body? So zinc lozenges to start with are very useful for the mucous immunity, but also any zinc picolinate or citrate would be, so don't use the elemental zinc or any elemental mineral. It doesn't absorb very well. So and you can take anywhere between 30 and 60 milligrams of that yeah, it could reduce or affect the copper in your body if you take in a long term. If you're taking a long term, and yeah, vitamin A, just the basic vitamin A, no beta carotene, and yes, so blood test not possible currently due to lockdown measures. Yes. Okay. Hi, Cheda, can you explain, hold on, about attachment theory and the effects it has on the immune system, hidden stress? Oh, it's a huge subject there. So, yeah, clearly our early imprint will, directly affect the state of our immune system, our nervous system. So are we hypervigilant? What the level baseline of our inflammatory response is, and also us being present in the world. So that definitely will have effect, but it can be modified. Depends on the strategies, and hence I do believe that it's not genetically determined, it's or even early. They will have a very strong imprint on our behavior patterns and so on. However, I definitely would suggest a combination of the suggestions I had. What do you think about long-term immunity once you've had it? Okay, so that's interesting because some of the virologists saying as any virus of this kind, particularly airborne virus, usually has 24 months lifespan until there is a general immunity that kind of formulates. Yeah, so basically, a lot of people say often there might be a second wave. That might be the case, which is fine as well. But predictions from really high top level virologists are saying that by the May next year, this will be kind of a long history. Kind of it would be. We will hardly even talk about COVID about this. So. However, what I do suggest, long-term good diet, good emotional, environmental support, environmental meaning that's, try not to be living in the polluted situations and expose yourself to extreme stress. And so it's important to manage your lifestyle and lifestyle strategies. Sorry, there are a lot of messages here, so I'm trying to. What is the dosage for wormwood and Chinese cold cup? I mean, wormwood, you can make tea with it, combining. It's quite bitter, but it's a great tea. And Chinese cold cup, anywhere between 500 milligrams to 3 grams, you can use. Depends if it's in the capsule form, liquid, or raw herb form. But do I recommend handheld or mains nebulizer? It's up to you, whichever. It's important microparticles to be in adequate level and 5 microns onwards, and it should be fine. I will upload the video, yes, whoever missed the start. So someone says they had a early COVID early April. Symptoms were not typical, but lots of symptoms were mild. It's taken 2 months to fully recover. Even now, there are times when my chest feels tight, and the energy levels are back. I'm currently taking Lungworth tea. Do you have any recommendations for recovery? Everything I mentioned there, I just gave you guys tons of, you use any of that, you'll be out in a week, I promise you. I mean, you use 1/3 of the recommended things up there. And okay, so how widely is it recognized that only 10% of our cells are around? Yeah, are you referring to the microbiome here? What does the medical establishment say about the microbiome? Actually, this comes from medical establishment as well. If you check microbiome, definitely there is, apparently, yeah, to me there was surprise that we are basically hosts for different practical systems and universes that abide within us. Yeah. So yeah, it's about 10%, and now we're finding how important the microbiome. And please, just to let you know, microbiome, it's not just in your gut. We got from 7 to 11 or 12 microbiomes that are very different from your genital tract, from your mouth, nose, from your skin, from your different parts of the body, and so on. So it's a huge body of research going on right now, really understanding more about this. And does theory help with the efficiency of the immune system? Absolutely. And I strongly promote theory. I teach it as well, because it affects your immune system. Any of you who did try theory even once, you notice the sense of relaxation, deeper sense of peace, and so on. And soon as you drop into the baseline that I demonstrated and showed, your nervous system will work better, and then your immune system will work better. So theory is great. Any therapy that makes you feel good, it's great. You know, someone that puts their hands on you, has therapeutic contact, sees you, feels you, respects who you are, it's highly beneficial. So, okay, yeah, I'm glad that a lot of people enjoyed the webinar. Yes. Yeah, just slightly apologize for doing it, for being a little longer than expected, but I think it's... So how will we access the video? It will be sent to you. So I need to actually, it's recorded on my computer, and then I will send it to all of you, all the participants there. Okay. Okay. So sorry, I missed most of it. That's fine. I will send you the video. What is the therapy that you just spoke of? TRE, tension and trauma release exercise. Yeah. So that's one of the therapies that I teach and I use. But there are many other therapies, you know, from anything from massage to shiatsu to whatever, Reiki, sound bath, I mean, rolfing, osteopathy, craniosacral therapy, all of these beautiful human things that brings us closer together and helps you come closer to yourself. That the whole point is, rather than waiting for a particular foreign agent to be inserted into you and someone who will save your life. It's you know, who knows what kind of expense. I definitely suggest being empowered and working with your own inner power and learning more about yourself. So, okay. Another question. What was the green wavy line, the parasympathetic chart? Is that what we have to look forward to going ahead? So that's the baseline, and yeah, the focus should be to come back to that baseline as much as possible. Yeah, so when you come back to that baseline, your whole system is in greater balance. So homeostasis is working, your nervous system, immune system, endocrine system, digestive system, everything else is functioning much better. So the whole idea is of therapeutic work is to bring you to the green wavy line. I think it was a blue wavy line in the green background. So the other questions are, can the herbs be used as essential oils? Absolutely. I mean, I didn't go into essential oils, but there's a huge I use actually specific essential oils for COVID, which particularly Scotch pine, extracted organic Scotch pine with the needles, is superb. It really, it's like you're walking in a evergreen forest there. So, and there are many others like frankincense, you've got the myrrh, you've got a number of essential oils that are profound, as well as thyme and sage and so on. Thoughts on this COVID vaccine I mentioned already. I mean, so COVID vaccine, yeah, my concern is we still don't know the entire structure of this virus. So how I just simply can't trust that these vaccines will be effective and safe if we don't still know the exact structure of this vaccine. Usually it takes 24 months, and this is really kind of a fast-tracked protocol to actually launch the vaccine. Usually, apparently, it was 4 years in the past, and so now it's 24 months. But they're trying to do this in few months' time, without actually proper steps and so on. So I really have a great concern about that, and particularly. The other thing is science is not used to confirm this, but social shaming and kind of a social response. You have to be responsible, so you should vaccinate yourself not to infect other people. But I worked, as I said, 30 years on my immune system. So basically someone will just dismiss 30 years of my work and say, no, that's not really valid. What's valid is what I say. And it's not, we can't really guarantee it's totally safe. We can't guarantee it's totally effective. And no one is responsible if something goes wrong with this vaccine as well. Yeah. So to me, some of these concepts are a little bit strange and a bit foreign. You know, if I'm proposing the food on this, you know, if I'm going to launch particular food products, I have to prove the safety before the product is launched. Otherwise, I can't say, oh, you just killed 10 people. Oh, sorry, it's actually unsafe here. So, yeah, so there's similar stories with this electromagnetic field, and some people have questions on 5G. And, you know, we talked about 2 and 3G like 20 years ago. Steiner talked about a radio frequency that appeared 100 years ago. Dr. Andrew Cohen talks about this very, very deeply on how it affects the terrain, host, and environment. So, and to me, concerning thing is, yeah, I am all for innovation and development and so on. But actually, let's respect the past. Let's actually learn what people have done in the past and how they developed and how our immune system is working and functioning, you know. So if you're going to introduce some new strategies, new technologies, I definitely would ask for this to be tested first. When I go onto the 5G website, Italian one, and you know, it's such a huge thing, and I looked into this, and there are a lot of hearings in states, in front of Congress, and a lot of scientists talked about this. But just a simple thing that's on their own official website, when it was under the safety, they said, oh, it's too early to talk about the safety. We need to put in a circulation in order to evaluate this. I mean, and to me, that's not good enough. I cannot tell you, oh, you take these supplements and we'll see in 5 years' time if this really beneficial for you, or this herb, or this food, and so on. So to me, it's common sense, but and not a lot of common sense are being applied in some of the decisions. How dangerous is non-organic foods on the brain and body? I'll be very cautious, guys. I mean, you know, we started the organic revolution in mid-90s in London, UK, and they were calling us hippies and, you know, nutters. Are you crazy? You know, it's too expensive and it's just for the posh and rich people. You know, my ancestors, all our ancestors ate organic, you know. So if you look at the industrial destruction of agriculture, not development, destruction of agriculture. There was some development, but mainly destruction. That from the First and Second World War, the main industries that were producing the biological weapons, and God knows the Spanish flu where it came from, and some of these viruses where they come from, because we speeded up entire process and evolution on this planet as well. And some of the things that might take 800 years, they are multiplying much faster. But, they're spraying, they're using pesticides, chemicals, herbicides, fungicides, all of that in order not to make your food healthier, but to maximize their profit. Are you going to be healthy or not? I really don't think that's the main concern of these corporations. You can see some of us are actually offering free work here, and we are struggling terribly. And I'm not saying everyone should do this. Absolutely, that's my own choice. But I'm just reading that the top billionaires, they just got enriched in the last 2 months, $480 billion. I mean, so if you believe these people are really there for your good in this kind of a crisis, then you might think again. How about oil spills? Yeah, Mexican Gulf oil spill, Nigerian Gulf oil spill that apparently happens every year, the size of the Fukushima. What happened with that? We already forgotten about this. And these events continuously, and events that we don't even know, they're carrying on being destroying Amazon fires, Indonesian fires, Australian fires, Siberian fires. All of these particles, where do you think they go? They are in our planet. They are on us. They're in our food as well. And then you add a nice strong dose of monoculture and some pesticides, chemicals, and then you have a proper cocktail that's, your immune system will have a really hard time fighting and working with. So, my reasons for supporting organic food, and I'm actually I left London, to create the organic farm. I'm in south of Italy here, having an organic farm and producing my own food as well, and just coming back to the natural cycles. And we can do this. The monoculture around the world, that it takes vast areas and they are subsidized. And of course, organic food is more expensive. And it should be more expensive because you are more expensive. You are worth more. You're not worth crap to be poisoned and then being just pushed over to a medical establishment that won't see you, won't hear you. And I'm not saying with all of them, I'm generalizing here terribly. But yeah, there is a level of frustration that we are not discussing those fundamentals. Why people in north of Italy are being, terribly affected. And we in south, we have no industries here. There is no infrastructure, and they're laughing about us. Yeah, you're 30 years behind us. Thank God. I wish I'm 50 years behind you, honestly. Because now it's coming back, some of these advancements, disrespect to the natural cycles, to the ecology, to the sociology, to socioeconomic structures, And so it's a big subject. We can go on, it's a subject I researched profoundly. And does the anxiety of someone who's suffering from attachment, anxiety, avoidance have an effect on other illnesses in person? Of course it does. Cancer organ issues, of course it does. Of course it does. If we as children being abused in some way, and I think we all have some particular levels of abuse, either it is some form of neglect, even the best parents cannot fulfill all the needs of a child. But there are some people who suffered terrible physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. Of course, you're going to have a particular disorganized responses in your nervous system, in your body, in your immune responses. So if that's not being addressed, because it can be reversed to some extent, if it's not being addressed and you've been, sedated. How this child is hyperactive, or he has deficiency, ADHD, and all these names, all these new tags and labels. The kids are being labeled, but we don't have time to actually sit with this child and embrace this child and stay with it for a little while and just see what's bothering you. How are you? How many people do this actually? How many people do this for us? And when someone does that, it's profoundly healing. That is, and that's why I chose this profession, because my life was transformed from that, and I'm trying to help other people as well. So, and it's not all doom and gloom. I really believe we have incredible technologies here. You know, if we manage to shut entire world down because of 1 out of trillions of viruses, why don't we shut entire world down until we finalize the new technologies that already exist? Why don't we knock down the fossil fuel energy? That's the cornerstone of all of the industries. Everything that we live by and with, it's immersed in this industry, which is actually raped and destroyed the entire planet. It caused wars and destruction, all of this thing that's going on. I mean, and someone say, oh, I need the job, my job is so, I need this, whatever, But we can create other jobs, more humane, more fulfilling jobs, And I really strongly feel we need to speak up more about this. We need to make our own choices. You need to make choice which side you're on, Because if you say, oh, I don't know, it's too big. Of course, it's huge, because some of these guys were, in creating establishment for God knows how long, hundreds of years perhaps, and entered in every vein of our life. However, they still don't understand the human body. And my appeal here and my outcry here is, your body is amazing. It's extraordinary. Yeah, we don't understand the beginning. We don't understand end of it. We understand none of that. So, instead of behaving like we understand everything and then suggesting solutions, it's utter ignorance and arrogance to suggest particular solution on a matter that you don't fully understand, to me. So at least some humbleness. I'm not saying I understand everything, but I'm not claiming that I understand. But there are people with the greater knowledge. We have technologies that can really stop exploiting people, stop exploiting continents and different cultures. It's enough what it has brought us to. I mean, who does benefit from all of this stuff? No one. Yeah, few people do, but most don't. So, what's my thoughts on vegan? Were our answers not meat eaters? If so, should we not be eating meat? Huge subject, veganism. Not for everyone. Depends on your structure, on your culture, on your belief systems, but a lot more on your biology, really. If you grow up with the meat, your structures have been developed on that. And I really, I was a vegan for many years. I was a raw foodist for a year. I really, until my body went into collapse and so on, and I found it doesn't really suit me. And some people might be more, have a greater benefit, but it's not for everyone. As a matter of fact, I came to Italy here to teach these ignorant people how they should be vegetarian, really. So when I got my olive farm here, and I could see they have all these flocks of sheep and other animals, and killing these animals and all of this stuff, and these animals dying. And but over the years, I learned that it's actually a natural cycle. They've been running for millions of years, and if you even cull the animal with respect, with care as well, there is a cycle. Animals do die. Industrial farming, cattle farming is a crime. It's criminal, really. and I'm totally against that. But I do believe conscious farming is, a matter of fact, key. If you look at the regenerative farming, you go and check the regenerative farming, that's one of the greatest solutions available to us for climate change, if you're looking at the change in climate change. Although I don't believe climate change is possible, as long as we have this kind of a post-industrial, neoliberal, capitalistic, banking, academic, medical cartel that is running the show, because these structures have created the climate change and all of these. So I'm a vegan, you're a terrible meat eater, or meat eater, you know, it's against the vegan or vegetarian, you know, the divide and conquer. Let's be tolerant, let's be respectful, listen to your body. You want to be vegan, great. You want to be meat eater, be conscious as well. Also be conscious vegan. Don't eat soy that is genetically modified, that destroys the millions of species and the entire local ecosystems on the monocultures in United States of America, in Brazil, China, etc. So, you know, there is a bigger picture on that. So, and of course, yeah, in the UK, we are really looking forward to getting USA chlorinated chickens. Yeah, the bill was passed in UK recently that also denies actually limitation of particular foods. So basically, let's just roll it all in and yeah, we really need to ask questions. Some of these people who make decisions, it's beyond inadequacy and ignorance. I think there is something worse than that. So yeah, lowering the food standards. I mean, it's like 21st century with everything we know, we are lowering the food standards. I mean, but I think within that, there is also opportunity for people really to go organic massively and biodynamic there, and to understand the permaculture and this regenerative farming and really understanding what farming is about, including the animals, because you cannot exclude them. So I really, yeah, so it's the wave, and I think the networking between us and caring for this planet and for one each other, because some of these powers are really not really caring. Otherwise, they wouldn't be sending the adolescents into a war a few thousand miles away to kill another kids over there for the benefit and profit, which has been going on forever. Well, not forever, for actually a good 100 years or so. Yeah, I think really this lockdown, if we can lock down because of one virus, we can lock down actually to fix the planet and this socioeconomic system. But yeah, that's my such influence of the body. Some people find it hard to believe that the mind can have such influence on the body, appetite, weight, illness. What do you say to them? Should school be teaching more about psychology? Absolutely, not just psychology, but body psychology, you know, because also this division of, oh, this is the body, my thoughts and emotions are elsewhere. It's not true, it's all in here. So when I feel angry, as I said, my whole biochemical profile is different. When I feel happy, it's very different. When I feel sad, it's very different. So it's a big subject, the psycho-emotional health, not just psychological health, but psycho-emotional health should be changed. The name should be changed to psycho-emotional health. And also in a non-judgmental way, like someone is a psycho. I mean, there are really psychopathic lawmakers around, but most people are terribly traumatized. Therefore, their responses were natural responses in unnatural and abnormal circumstances. Okay, so I think there might be enough for today, 2 hours. But yeah, I actually enjoyed it very much. So I hope I was coherent enough. And I will send this over. And yes, take good care of yourselves, guys. All the best. Much love to everyone. And there is power within you. Just be with that power and nourish that power. If you want, no one else will. Okay, all the best.